welcome to this week's red wine with Hila. We got red wine and begele, we got pretzels, proper Israeli snack. Well, it was difficult to lift myself this week after last week's execution of our 6 beautiful people by the Gazan terrorists. It was an incredibly hard week. But I'm going to start from the end. It ended with what lasted until I saw the news this morning, but the healing power of music, the healing power of dance. We held Stop the Hate UK. We held a Nova UK dance yesterday outside the Israeli embassy in London. And the reason it was there was because the pro-jihadist, the pro-terrorist march of thousands of people that is freely roaming the streets of London with their messages of hatred, calls for genocide, their symbols and blood libels and lies and whatnot. They're allowed to do whatever they please, whatever they want. They harass us, they bully people, but they're allowed to march. And their march was meant to end at our embassy, and I think it was a very clever and important decision to say until here. I mean, you're not going to go anywhere near our embassy. And that's where we held our Nova Remembrance dance. It was a party. It wasn't happy. I mean, I danced like I would, but I struggled to smile, proper deep smile from my heart. I've been struggling with that for a while. But it was good. It was good to loosen up a bit, to relax, to free ourselves, and to show them what they hate most. They hate most seeing us happy. They hate most seeing us dancing. They hate most seeing us singing. And that's exactly what we did. We came with our continuous messages of love, of inclusiveness, of the truth and the light, and everything that Israel stands for, and everything that the people who support Israel stand for. All those people who don't fall for the manipulations of the fraudulent Palestinian narrative. So we had this dance, and one of I think the main poster said, when we dance, we pray. And that was what Shani Louk, who's resting in heaven with the angels of Nova now, said while she was alive. And I could so associate with that, because I closed my eyes and I prayed for the return, safe return of our hostages alive. Because what happened last week proved to us that even if any of our hostages are currently alive, no one can tell what's going to happen until they actually get back home into the safety of Israel. And another thing that I don't know if you noticed, if you know by now, but when somebody dies, murders, when somebody gets murdered, when there's a terror attack on Israel and somebody dies, we all mourn. We all feel the pain of the family. It's not like something we hear on the news and wave it by. It hits us profoundly. And 6 young people who were alive. They were not healthy because they were starved with all the aid that's going into Gaza and all the starvation that they have in Gaza. And they're all suffering from obesity, by the way. That's one of the main recent conclusions of their health ministry of Hamas. They suffer from obesity. So they don't suffer from starvation, but they do starve our hostages. And they abuse them, but they were alive. They were alive and they should have been home. And Eden was a girl, was the same age as my daughter, and she was kidnapped from the Nova Festival because she took the different turning to the one my daughter took. Her luck was just not there that day. The only reason my daughter is safely home, thank God. There isn't a day I don't thank God for bringing her home alive, despite the traumas that she suffers with everybody else who went out alive from that place. Eden just took the wrong turning. She was at the wrong place at the wrong time. And and they took her. And she turned 24 in Gaza, and she was there with Hirsch, and she was there with Almog, and she was there with Alex, and she was there with Ori, who went back to save people. He was out. He was already out. He went back to save his friends, and he got Mia and Itai Shem back or into his car, but he didn't manage to get them back to Israel because they were all kidnapped when he got them into the car. And Omer Shem Tov was with them as well. And when the terrorists took them to Gaza, they separated them. So nobody knew where he was for a while. Nobody knows where Omer Shem Tov is. There's no sign of life from him. Red Cross, of course, doesn't give a damn. Itai and Mia Shem are thankfully back home, safe. And Carmel Gat was doing yoga lessons to the people who were with her in captivity. She was a yoga teacher. She did meditation, and she was looking after the children. The children who came out, who were released in the exchange or in the deals with the terrorists that we have made at the beginning, told of how amazing she was and how she encouraged all the children. She looked after them. She was like their mom in there, and she encouraged them to come and do yoga and imagination activities. And they killed her. And the Gazan terrorists shot her at the back of the head because they didn't want her to be free. So that was really tough. And last week on my way to the Friday counter-protest outside our ambassador's house, which the pro-jihadists do every Friday, started at 5 o'clock in the winter because they want to disrupt the Jewish lifestyle of our people. They succeed. So we went together to the protest, and she told me that she saw an image of a child that the Palestinians, the Arabs, the Gazans, claim is from Gaza. She saw a really gory photo of what happened to them and how they look, or a video. And she described to me what she saw. And despite the fact that I don't know, and neither do you, whether this is a child that died in hospital from a sickness and then has been displayed as something different, whether it was a whole show or whether it was a child from Syria. But let's say it was a casualty of the war. We don't show you the photos. The 13 children who died in Majd el-Shams, who were murdered by a missile that was shot from Lebanon by Hezbollah. We didn't show you the photos. We could have also shared with you those gory photos and show you how they looked. We didn't share with you the horrid images of the 7th of October. Many of the people were buried straight away. Their families didn't even get a death certificate of their loved ones because the Jewish faith dictates respect to the dead. And respect to the dead means you do not take photos of them and display them in front of the world, and you bury them as soon as possible. And you start your mourning and you're grieving. And one of the stories that I heard this week, I did know of these things happening, but I didn't know of an individual. And there was a very famous individual, for many people who actually knew of it, because I don't watch the news, I'm a bit behind sometimes, of a woman who was known as the woman with the black dress. And for, I think, a week or so, nobody knew who she was. But they found her. She was lying on her stomach. I'm not going to give you the rest of the details, but she was shot with a nail gun into her intimate parts and her thighs. And she was brutally raped. And at the end of that, she was burnt alive. And the photo of her is with her hand covering her eyes, probably from the flames, from the heat, from whatever. If you can imagine the torture, the excruciating pain this woman has gone through. She did not die from a bomb that blew up on the top of her head. She did not get shot. She was tortured. And it's been proved today that many of those evil tortures that have been performed against children, against babies, against men, against women, were done by Gazan civilians, not the Nukba terrorists. When the Nukba terrorists left, they swept the area. They got into the Nova Festival. They took what they could. They carried on. They went into the kibbutzim. Like, they were like 6,000. Yeah, not 3,000. We thought originally 3,000 terrorists infiltrated Israel that day, but there was 6,000. So after they infiltrated and they swept through where they were, the Gazan civilians came. And around noon, they did a lot of really, really horrid things. So we don't share and we don't show you. And the manipulation of the fraudulent Palestinian narrative works very well on the brains and the empathy and the compassion of people with good intentions. But Israel doesn't target children, and Israel doesn't target civilians. And that's the big difference between us and them. War is war, casualties are casualties. They target families, they target children. And yes, so back to last week. So that was when I went to that protest, and I spoke to my friend about that. And then the day after, there was a little counter protest that I usually don't attend. I attended with people who are called Our Fight UK, which sadly, their main man was arrested yesterday with Niak Gurbani, the Iranian freedom fighter, because they were simply holding a sign stating the truth. They are the most kind and gentle people I know. And they went to where the pro-jihadi protest has ended, just before they got to us. And they held a Union Jack and a sign saying Hamas is terrorist. Now we know the truth is the correct grammar in English is Hamas are terrorists, but it was written originally by Niak. He was Iranian, and he wrote Hamas is terrorist, and we left it like that. But this is, as stated in the UK by the law, the UK government has defined and declared Hamas is a terrorist organization. So they were holding those signs, a sign claiming the truth and the Union Jack, and they've been arrested because they seem to aggravate the people who mark upside down triangles that are saying you're next, copying Hamas, holding blood libels and things that I'm not going to repeat. So these two beautiful people have been arrested. And on Saturday last week, I was at a counter protest outside a theater here in London that the pro-jihadists targeted because of their connection with Israel, Barclays Bank. I don't know. I don't even know. They know everything. They know so much. If we want to support Israel, we just need to follow everything they want to boycott and support it. So I went to that. That was extremely difficult. I had my headphones on with music the whole time. I could not bear to hear any more of their lies. But the problem is that the majority of the public in the UK does not wear headphones. So everybody who was walking past heard like a mantra, again and again and again and again, blood libels and lies, and blood libels and lies. And I remember asking a policeman in one of the protests I've been to recently, if I decided to go out of my house and say that somebody I hate, like one of my neighbors, let's say I really hate him, I'm going to come out and hold a sign and saying he's a rapist, he's a murderer, he murders children. I'm going to walk through town slurring his name and making up accusations about him, which are obviously untrue, the same as everything that's Israel been accused of. Am I allowed to do that? I mean, where does it end? Are people allowed to do whatever they want? So can anyone just go and say whatever they want about anyone, anywhere? I don't remember his reply, but this is that was one of those moments. I was standing there and people were listening to lies on a megaphone, repeated on and on and on. And there were three smug-looking people standing at the entrance to the theater, dressed all nicely with their murderous kafiyas look on, and they were handing out little leaflets with lies. But people pick them up. They sometimes don't even read them when they're there. They take them and they look at them later. But the fact that they already took them, they're already going to look at them. And the things that are written there are blood libels and lies and incitement for hatred, and exactly the kind of things that were going on in Germany before the Holocaust. before 1939, when the anti-Semitism was systematically brainwashed into the public. And this is exactly what is being allowed in the Western world today. So that was Saturday. It was extremely emotionally difficult for me personally. And then Sunday Sunday morning, Saturday night, there was already rumors of something happening to the hostages. And sadly, I saw that Ori Danino, the hostage that was one of the 6 that was executed, his mom found out through Telegram. She didn't find out through the usual ways when people come and knock on your door and inform you. She saw it on Telegram that her son has been murdered after being held hostage for over 300 days. I can't imagine what she's been through. She said, I cannot tell you how it felt. It's the worst thing that anyone in the world can even imagine. So there were rumors already running around on Saturday night. And when I woke up on Sunday morning, ready for a protest outside Pret in central London, because they decided to boycott Israel and succumb to the BDS. We already heard the news, and we had to get up and go there. And all I wanted to do is hide under the blanket. I didn't want to see anyone or talk to anyone. It was such a disappointment for so many people who were fighting for them to come home. For Hirsch's mom, that every day, with no fail, addressed the cameras every day, that her son was away, to strengthen him, to make him feel they're with him and they're behind him. And you know what? I'm sure he felt it. I'm sure he knew all along, until his last minute on this cursed planet, that his family is behind him, that his mom is talking to him, that she's thinking of him, that an entire nation is calling for him to come home and fighting for his return, along with all the other hostages. So we woke up that morning, it was like 7th October all over again, and we went to that protest. And we changed our music list, and the messages were very painful, and we had the video, and we had the photos and candles, and it was there was a wall that they were making. They were doing work in a church, and there was like one of those walls, wooden walls that separate the church from, like, so you don't see the construction. It's like construction site, and we stuck some posters of the hostages, and we were asked to remove them, of the hostages that were executed, because the church wanted to remain impartial. They didn't want to have any side in that. I don't remember the church in St. Pancras who held the hate event with Roger Waters saying they want to remain impartial. But when it's Israel involved, they will remain impartial. So yeah, that was very powerful, very difficult moment, but it was good to be together with like-minded people, because we all cried together and remembered those people together. And in the evening, we went to memorial service. So it was really, really packed weekend, full of pain, and I can't even express. It was really difficult. And then we woke up on a Monday morning to the stab on the back from David Lammy. David Lammy, I didn't know who he was when I went to the first vigil after the 7th of October. I think it was on the 9th of October in central London. And a lot of very important people spoke how they support Israel, stand in solidarity with the Jewish people, how they will protect the Jewish people. And he spoke very nicely. Not that I had any illusions, I already know. And I kept saying, well, let's hear him in a few days after we start the war. But then he spoke very nicely. I didn't know who he was then. And then I found out that he's like the newly elected Labour government of the UK, the foreign minister, together with the Prime Minister Starmer, who's married to a Jewish woman, which he's been hiding for quite a while. They've decided to boycott Israel or place a partial arms embargo on Israel. They suspended or cancelled a few licenses of sales of arms to Israel. And the things they hold back are components of drones and planes and helicopters, which are exactly the things that protect my family in northern Israel from the attacks by Hezbollah in Lebanon. So what they're doing is they are deciding of a death sentence to my family. That's what they're doing. And they think they're empaths. Well done them. So the first thing I did on that morning is made a big post on my Instagram, which generated many likes and follows or forwards and saves, because it was very powerful. And it just mysteriously disappeared Saturday night. It was like Big Brother's watching you. I didn't get a warning from Instagram or anything like you do when you break any of their rules. It just vanished. They didn't like what I said. And what I said was, you interfered in 1939. You could have saved 6 million Jews. And now you interfere again. And don't help the neo-Nazis, the new Nazis, exterminate us now. They always seem to try and appease the Arabs. The Arabs that were in Israel in 1948, the majority of them arrived as work immigrants, or they came from the revolts, the Muslim revolts that conquered our land. They were not indigenous. The Arabs are from Arabia, the Jews are from Judea. We were there before the British Mandate, and the British Mandate came to a Jewish Palestine, and their job was to help establish a Jewish state and not become buddies with the lovely Arabs that they liked so much. Gave them 78% of our land, called it Jordan. So that's your Palestine. If you want a Palestine, that's your Palestine. So anyone who calls themselves Palestinian, please go home. Go to Jordan. Israel is Israel, Judea. It doesn't belong to anybody else. Stop believing everything that you hear, all these brainwashes of lies and lies and lies that we took things from them. There was one guy on the tube yesterday with a kafir, and a few of my people started talking to them, and I couldn't even look at him. He was pretending to be all kind and nice and educated, and he said, well, in all honesty, it's by any means necessary. I said, by any means necessary what? Shoot guns from a nail gun onto a woman's intimate parts, rape her and burn her alive after? Is that your resistance of by any means necessary to get back a country that was never yours or theirs? The Palestinian invention of 1964 managed to brainwash a lot of people around the world. Many people fall for that trap and fall for those lies. And that backstabbing by the UK was really painful, because they're one of our biggest allies. We're the only democracy. Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. A lot of the medication that the NHS is using is made in Israel. A lot of innovations made in Israel are used by the British public. Yet the majority of the British public, if they're not supporting the fraudulent Palestinian narrative, they stay quiet. They don't come out. They don't help us protest. They allow the new bus route, Jew-safe bus route, to exist, because it's easier to have a Jewish safe bus than to counter terrorism and anti-Semitism. That starts from a very early age, from schools, teaching fraudulent narratives in geography books, in history books. I've seen it in my own eyes. I saw it when my children were little, when I got those books, and I cringed. I couldn't believe my eyes. So that's the result. Years and years of systematic brainwash. There is a whole other thing behind the anti-establishment thing that's going on from early age education. But that's for a whole other story. So, oh my God, I had so many messages that I wanted to say. I'm sure I forgot some. I hope I didn't bore you. I'm talking a bit slowly because I had my wine and I'm a bit relaxed, more relaxed than usual. It's a very lovely wine, by the way. It's Chilean. And a recommendation to buy Chilean wine because it's good for your heart. And I didn't make a mistake. It was actually very lovely. So, yeah. So it's been tough. It's been tough, and it's going to get tougher, because if people are not going to wake up, and if people aren't going to start risking their comfort zone, coming out of their comfort zone, because we all want to just continue our lives uninterrupted. But it's going to come. It's going to come to if you're Jewish, it's going to hit you at some point. And if you're not Jewish and you're a Westerner, it's going to hit you as well. There's already calls in Manchester by radical Muslims asking people not to walk their dogs in certain areas, or not to walk dogs. I saw it on the corner of my eye. I didn't have time to even look at it in depth. But there's little things, there's little signs that there are, the radical Islam is there, and we're the first ones. And the Iranians who are warning the whole world from it keep saying, we escaped from this tyranny, we escaped from this regime, and we found ourselves in the West being threatened by this same regime because it's about to take over the West as well. So people have to wake up. You have to wake up, because first they come to the Jews and then they come for everybody else. And that's what happened in the Holocaust with the Nazis. They started with the Jews and they wanted to conquer the rest of the world. So you really, it's tough being Israeli Jew today, but I wouldn't be anything else. We had a lot of love yesterday. It was really good to be together with my like-minded people. And we will dance again. We will dance again, and our love will rebuild. We're not going to let them stop us. Until next week, be well and safe and just love.